Hi guys, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, Craftin' Up a Storm. Today I have 5 more fall-inspired projects for you. I might even have a bonus project in today's video. So hopefully these low-cost projects inspire you to create something for your home. Let's get crafting. For the first project, I found this cute little pumpkin sign at Dollar Tree. I like this as is in a lot of ways. I like the stain on the side, and I love the background paper. I do want to pull that pumpkin off the front, and I want to be very careful because I want to be able to use that background paper. And then we're just going to give the pumpkin a little bit of a facelift. I like the little pumpkin. And I want to keep those blocks to pop it up again, but I'm going to take that glitter off and do something different. The first thing I do is take some Waverly antique wax and just darken the background just a slight bit. Now I'm going to use some terracotta paint and paint our pumpkin. Once our pumpkin's completely painted, I used my Cricut to make Hello Fall. And I decorated around the pumpkin with some rub-on transfers. I went around the edge with some antique wax, and then I dry brushed ivory chalk paint over the top. I put the blocks back onto the back of our pumpkin, and I popped it right back into the frame. I added a little bit of raffia bow to the top, and there's our little sign done. What do you think? For this project, I grabbed one of the large foam dice. I used my hot wire and I cut it diagonally one way and diagonally the other way. And now I have 4 pieces, and I took the pieces apart and I just rotated each piece one turn or a quarter turn. But because this dice is kind of rounded, I had to trim off the inside edge in order to get them straight so I could glue them together. I hot glued those together and held it together until everything solidified. And then I even added a bunch of hot glue into the top creases. You can see there's a lot of hot glue at the top. And it held it together pretty well. Now I'm going to use some Waverly chalk paint in celery and some antique wax. And I just distressed my pumpkin out a bit. Now I got the idea from Bella's Bargains. She is genius. She used this beachy web looking ribbon with her pumpkins instead of moss. But I think moss would work really great as well too. But I tried it in between my pumpkin sections, and I just kind of glued it in there and wedged it in there. And it just gives it a different kind of lacy look. I cut the pieces a little longer, so I had to kind of scrunch them up, and then I glued them at the on the edge in there, and then kind of stuffed the top and bottom just so that it kind of squunched it all up really good. Then I had some leftover floral leaves, and I glued those to the top along with a little branch stem. I just cut a piece off my tree in the front. And there's our kind of quirky little pumpkin. I added some raffia on the top, and that's it. Let me know what you guys think of this one. I'm curious on this one. For this project, I used the water and wet paper towel method to get that glitter off the front of my pumpkin. I just let it sit and soak for a while. Love that idea. And it cleared off the glitter very well. Now I wanted to go ahead and cut this into 3 sections. So I measured and I got roughly about what 3 sections would be. And I cut my pumpkin up with my little miter saw box just on a straight edge. I have some twigs from my tree. I just tried to cut pieces that were fairly straight. Now I want to mark in the middle where I want to put my little sticks. You can also use dowels or skewers. I marked one and then I followed that mark onto all 3 pieces. I'm going to use these colors to paint my pumpkin. It was a turquoise, an orange, and a yellow. And now I have these little rhinestones I'm putting around the edge of it. And I'm adding some antique wax to make it look very... No, actually, this is truffle. I'm adding some truffle paint to kind of distress the corners. And then I go over the whole piece with some antique wax. Yeah, here's the wax. For the sides, I did use the little flat rhinestones to kind of make what looks like rivets. And now I'm going to use that rust colored paint, the 3 mixture that I use with the brown and the orange and the gold. And I'm going to make it look like this has like a metal edge to it with those rivets, faux rivets in it. So I just go around the edge and I try really hard not to get it onto the piece, the front of it. And I just go around the edge. I paint it and then I go back over it with a little bit of the sponge to add that texture. Now I'm going to add my twigs in to be able to put my pieces back together. And again, you can use whatever you have, skewers or dowel rods or whatever. I just kind of wanted the rustic look of these twigs. And I put all the pieces back together of my pumpkin. So I've got these 3 sections now. And I decided I put the bow, the raffia, a little raffia ribbon on it. And I tried to do it kind of to the side because this way I could use both sides of this pumpkin. I could decorate one side one way and the other side another way. And this way the bow kind of shows on both sides of my pumpkin. For one side of my pumpkin, I decided it was a perfect opportunity to get the gears and little screws out and make a steampunk pumpkin on one side. So I glued down my gears and I added these very tiny screws. And then because they're very new silver looking, I wanted to rust them up a little bit. So I used some more of that paint and went over the top of a few of the gears and a few of the screws. And there's my steampunk pumpkin. For this project, I picked up this chunky leaf from Dollar Tree and removed the paper on the front. And I went around the edge of this one just like I did on my pumpkin with the little rivets. I have some gold ones as well too. These are a little bit smaller. and I just put them all around the edge of my leaf. I'm going to do that same rusty edge. Once that was dry, I used some Waverly chalk paint in agave on one side and mineral on the other side. Once I had both sides painted and it was dry, I went in with some antique wax around the side. I added some color around the edges, and then I even went over the whole entire leaf to darken it just a little bit and add some kind of look like veins. I don't have footage of the edge where I painted it, but I did it just like I did the pumpkin in the last project and used that rust colored paint, brown, orange, and gold. And then I used the little dauber to add that texture over the top once it was painted. I added some raffia to the bottom of this leaf, and this one's done. This project was so simple and easy, but I think it's one of my favorites. I picked up the ceramic pumpkin at Dollar Tree, and I used that terracotta paint to give it a nice, good coat of color. For the stem, I'm going to use that rust mixture. It doesn't really read as rust when I'm done with this one so much, but I liked it to be kind of cohesive with the other projects that I made. So once I was done with that, I went over and I dry brushed with some ivory chalk paint over the top. And I didn't show it, but once I dry brushed, I did kind of rub it a little bit so that the lines were softened in my dry brushing. I added a raffia ribbon to the top so that I could tuck some of these beaded wire ribbon to the top for some vines. And that's this project done. Super simple. For this last project, I picked up a piece of cardboard and 3 of the bright colored maple leaf bushes from Dollar Tree, along with some Dollar Tree material. I cut out roughly a teardrop shape. I don't have any measurements. I just eyeballed it, kind of an egg or teardrop shape. I'm laying down my leaf stems. I left several of them long to be able to lay them down and get some length. And now I'm just going in with a little bit shorter, going up a little bit higher, and I'm filling in using all these stems. As I glue it down, now I'm going to go over with some just leaf by themselves, and I'm covering those stems up. I didn't worry about how those leaves were laying as I was gluing my stems down. Once I was done, if the leaf ended up upside down, I clipped it off the stem, flipped it over, and laid it down because I want all my leaves to lay flat. And I just tucked them in here and there and made it very full. And if you haven't guessed already, we are making a Woodsy Gnome. So he is going to have a leaf beard, and I want it to be nice and full and bushy. Once I got the beard, the length and the fullness that I wanted, and here I'm just going in and filling in any spaces or flipping any of those leaves over, I realized I needed a little bit more height at the top. So I did go back and just cut an extra piece that I could put at the top. That will help his hat to kind of stand up a bit. So the size that you cut really doesn't matter. You can add to it if you need to. I just added that top piece. Now, I will say for his hat, I am completely winging it. I folded up the edge so it kind of made a brim to the front of his hat. And then I just folded the edges in to make a triangle shape. I'm gluing the material down to the back of it. And then I gathered it to kind of come to a point and glued the top of it. And then I randomly glued in different places. I am totally winging this one, but it came out okay. Now I want to make a nose. I'm going to use this stocking that I had, or tights, and I thought it was a perfect gray. I'm using cotton balls, so I'm kind of pulling them apart so that he doesn't have a lumpy nose. And I'm just stuffing it I'm using as many as it takes to get the size I'm thinking he needs to have. On one end, I just kind of put the glue around the inside and pinched it all together, just to make sure it was closed and his stuffing won't come out. On the other end, this is the side that will show a little bit more, so I am going to try and make this a little more smooth so he doesn't kind of have a pucker that shows. And I tuck one end in, and then I fold the top over. And I glue all of that down. Once I have that glued down, I'm going to tuck that little nose right up under the brim of his hat and put it in the position that I think it looks like it needs to be. Once I have it in position, I do go in with my hot glue gun and I tack it down to the hat and on the sides. And there he is. There's my little gnome. I think he came out really cute. I hope you enjoyed all these projects today. Please let me know which one is your favorite. I know these are a little offbeat, but it's kind of neat to have something just a little different. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, give me a great big thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love to have you as part of my crafty family. And I have plenty more fall videos and ideas to bring to you. As always, keep crafting.